Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Gemini 2.0 Flash with Vertex AI on Google Cloud. So my name is Holt Skinner. I'm a developer advocate for Google Cloud. It's focused on AI, machine learning, and I live in beautiful Austin, Texas in the United States. Yes, that's right. I did come in for this presentation. So yes, I'm gracing with my presence. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so this is actually my very first time in Canada. Despite living in the United States for my entire life, I never made it up here, and I've been to, this is my 15th country, actually. And I just learned a couple of days ago that there's a company named after me here. So yes, Holt Renfrew. It is much more bougie than I am, but you know, it's a very, very fine store. I recommend going to it. And they will not give me a discount there, unfortunately. I'm very upset with that. So, oh well, it is how it is. But I've really enjoyed being here. Vancouver's a great city. I hope to come back at some point. It's been excellent. So what kind of stuff do I do? So I write a lot of code, mostly for other people to use, mostly helping other software engineers out in the world use AI, specifically on Google Cloud or whatever other service you'd like to do. I create a lot of technical educational content. This is things like YouTube videos and blogs, Jupyter notebooks. I manage stuff on open source with GitHub repositories, and I publish a lot of stuff out there. And I work with the product teams inside Google Cloud to make our products more developer friendly as possible. And I help to build developer communities, both online and in person, like we're doing right here. So for a little bit of an agenda today, we may not get through all of it, but we're going to do as much as we can today. We're going to do a little overview of Gemini and Vertex AI. We're going to talk about some of the new stuff available for Gemini 2.0. We're going to take a look at some learning resources. We're going to take a look at the code for how to use it. We're going to run through a couple of Jupyter notebooks that you guys can access as well and either follow along or go and play with it afterwards, either way. So first, we're going to do a quick little overview of Gemini and Vertex AI. Oh, I forgot to add this to the agenda. And also, one of my colleagues, Allison Corner, is going to be presenting a little bit about the Google Cloud for Startups program, because we are here in a startup incubator. So it felt like an appropriate topic to add on as well. So we're going to do a quick little overview of Gemini and Vertex AI. How many of you have heard of Gemini before? Okay, a good chunk of the room. So I'm going to hopefully gloss over a little bit the details, but if I miss anything that people don't know about, then please raise your hand and we'll get back to it. How many of you have heard of Vertex AI? Okay, still a few people, but definitely a smaller amount on here. So I work on the Cloud AI developer advocacy team, which focuses primarily on Vertex AI. And nowadays, everything anywhere is on generative AI, which means mostly Gemini. So what is Gemini? You know, does anyone want to give an answer better than the one I have here? No? Okay. So Gemini is a multimodal generative AI model, otherwise known as a large language model or LLM. So multimodal, if you don't know what that means, it just means it can take in a whole bunch of different types of data and output a bunch of different types of data. So things like text, code, images, documents, audio, video, all that kind of stuff. It can handle it, and then it can give you text output, or in some of the newer versions, it can also output images and audio as well. And Gemini is particularly special because it has a 1 to 2 million token context window, which is really large in the grand scheme of large language models. So this can be up to 2 million token context window, can be up to 2 hours of video, 22 hours of audio, 60,000 lines of code, or 1.4 million words. So it can take in a lot of information and then either condense it down into something else or just answer questions about it, all that kind of stuff. And it is Gemini models are currently the top 2 spots on the LMArena.ai leaderboard. Right now we have Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking, the one that was released just, I think, last week, or what, let's see, January 21st. That was last week, I think. So it was released very recently, and it's quickly climbed to the top of the leaderboard here. There's also a couple of experimental models here as well. And the one we're going to be talking about today is right here. And of course, we have our new friend, the new kid on the block, DeepSeek, which I'm going to mention and talk a little bit about there. Yay, excitement. So what is Vertex AI then? Vertex AI is a managed end-to-end AI and ML platform on Google Cloud. It includes a lot of great things for any kind of AI developer. Some of the cool ones here, we have Model Garden, which is a bunch of different, it's literally, the term is kind of funny here that it's garden, I don't know why they decided to name it that, but it is actually pretty illustrative of what it is. So it is a full curated selection of generative and predictive AI models from Google, partners, and open source, including DeepSeek R1, that is available. So you can deploy it and run it in production with just a few clicks. I actually tried it myself the day that all this stuff came out, and it worked pretty well. So nice. There's also Vertex AI Studio, which is a great place to experiment and play around with all these different models. You can build your own custom models, including training prediction pipelines, distillation, fine-tuning, all that kind of stuff. There's also vector search for embeddings as well available, and Colab Enterprise, which is just a fancy schmancy enterprise grade version of Jupyter Notebooks. And of course, there's also all sorts of enterprise grade security and reliability if you care about that. Okay, now, which Gemini are we going to be talking about? Because if you are familiar with Gemini, there's a lot of different things out there that have this name. It's a model, it's a web app, it's an integration, and there's multiple APIs to access it. So a quick little rundown of these. The Gemini model is the generative AI model that powers all these other tools. And we're mostly going to be working with the actual, the raw model itself today. There's also the Gemini web app, which used to be called Bard. It's at gemini.google.com, and it's a fully, it's just a chatbot that you can go in and interact with, and it has integrations to all sorts of other tools like Google Search, Gmail, Drive, all that kind of stuff. And then there's Gemini in Google Workspace or in Google Cloud or whatever. That's why the star is here, which used to be called Duet AI. This is just integrations of the Gemini model into a lot of tools that you're probably already using, like Docs and Drive and Sheets, all that kind of stuff. Then there is Google AI Studio and the Gemini Developer API, which is a lot of times just referred to as the Gemini API. It is a great place to kind of start out with the Gemini API and play around with it. And then there's also Vertex AI, which is the Gemini is Vertex AI Studio, and Gemini API and Vertex AI, which is where you want to go whenever you want to productionize and add other components like storage and data warehousing, all that kind of stuff. We also have the Gemma model, which is an open source version of Gemini. And it's on Hugging Face, so you can go in and try it out as well. It's made with the same research and development team as Gemini. It's just an open source version of it. Okay, so the way we're gonna be interacting with Gemini today is with the Google GenAI SDK. This is a unified SDK that works with both the Gemini Developer API and Gemini API and Vertex AI. So you just have to change one-ish line to switch between them. And it works with the Gemini version 1.5 and above. Currently supports Python and Go with Java and JavaScript coming very soon. So you just have to basically change the API key over to Vertex AI equals true and add in a project and location, and you're good to go to switch between these different APIs. So we're going to be using the Vertex AI API today, but you can also run all this same code using just the Gemini Developer API and getting an API key from them. So we're going to talk a little bit about the new stuff for Gemini 2.0. So some of the new features in Gemini 2.0 Flash, which just came out last month or so, is overall better performance than the previous versions. That's to be expected, and higher quality. So it's the actual responses ended up being faster than the previous version and higher quality. I mean, that sounds pretty obvious. Of course, the new version is going to be better, but that's just how it goes. There's some different output modalities like speech and image outputs, which is currently only an allow list, but that should be released to the public very soon. And you can get in touch with our sales teams if you want to get allow list access to those. There's also some cool stuff with native tool use. So there's integrations directly with Google Search to crawl the entire public internet for information. And then there's code execution, which actually lets it generate code that can then be executed, and you can get either the executed result directly from it, or you can just get verification that it compiles if you want to do that kind of stuff. Then there's also automatic function calling built directly in, and compositional function calling, which is things like nested functions or complex agentic workflows. There's also a multimodal live API, which is a bidirectional streaming API for multimodal input and output. This is, if you saw at Google I/O last year, there was Project Astra, which is, it was like a pair of glasses that had a camera on it that was directly talking back and forth to Gemini. This is the API that is running that kind of stuff. There's also the thinking model, which allows you to generate the thinking process of the model, and it gives it a lot of stronger reasoning capabilities. And that particular model is the one that's the top of the LM leaderboards right now. Okay, so let's dive into some code. So the best place to go for resources on all of these, and we're going to walk through some of this today, but this is the main QR code you're going to want here, is the Google Cloud Generative AI GitHub repository. You can also go to github.com/Google Cloud Platform/generative-AI. And I'm going to give you a short link as well that'll make this a little easier. And this is a giant repository full of, I think, 200 or 300 demos, notebooks, example code for how to use all sorts of generative AI models on Google Cloud, not just Gemini. There's stuff for Claude, there's stuff for Llama on there, there's stuff for other models from Hugging Face, there's a notebook in there for DeepSeek now. There's also stuff for speech models, generative images as well. So there's lots of good options for you in there. Okay, and another place you can look right here is the Vertex AI Cookbook, which this is the shorter link that might be easier for you to remember later. goo.gol/vertex-ai-cookbook. This QR code will take you right there. It is a curated selection of these notebooks, curated by me specifically. And it has a nice little interface that's easy to search through all of them. You can find exactly what kinds of things you're looking for in there. So let me keep that up in case anyone wants to take a photo of that quickly. I will also send these out in the Discord channel if I can get access to it. So Mark, where is he? Yes, can you please add me to the Discord channel after this so I can share out the slides? Thank you. Excellent. So now let's take a look at some notebooks and demos of the API. These are the ones we're going to be looking at today. Hopefully we'll have time for all of it. We might not, but we'll see what we can get through here. We're going to do a quick little intro to Gemini 2.0 Flash. If we have time, we'll do some multimodal live API and some thinking mode as well. So they're all available at this URL right here. And so I'm going to jump over to the actual notebook, and we will see if we can get this to work. Because, you know, live demos are always fun. Yes, everyone here knows, like, yes, things can happen sometimes. So this is the actual notebook. If you go to the Vertex AI Cookbook page, it will give you links to all of these, and it'll open it up in GitHub. So this is the actual notebook in the GitHub repository. You can click on any of these little links up here at the top to open these in, or open this notebook in various tools. We're going to use Colab Notebooks, which is a nice managed sandbox environment for Jupyter Notebooks that's completely free to use. You can also open it in Colab Enterprise, the fancy schmancy version of it, Vertex AI Workbench, even more fancy schmancy. Or you can actually use this service called Cloud Skills Boost, which is some other, I'm trying to think of the best way to do it. It's a managed learning environment for a lot of stuff with Google Cloud. But we're going to do Colab today. Okay, first we have a little, I'm not going to show this because you basically got the abbreviated version of me talking to you right now. So there's an introduction to Gemini 2.0 Flash in here. We already talked about most of these things here. In this notebook, it shows you how to use the Google GenAI SDK for Python with the Gemini 2.0 Flash model. It shows all the different tasks you're going to complete. We're going to do some basic text generation, which I had called chat completion for different models. So streaming text, multi-turn chats, asynchronous methods for this. We have different model parameters, system instructions, safety filters, control generation, all this kind of stuff. You can probably read it. So we install the Google GenAI SDK. It's just pip install google-GenAI. We have some code here to do authentication, which I've already done ahead of time. What this will do is it'll bring up a little pop-up that you can log in with your Google account on. And so then you might have to enable the Vertex AI API if you have a Google Cloud project and haven't set it up yet. And I can provide some resources if you would like to use the Gemini developer API as well. We have some libraries to import in. This is where if you have a Google Cloud project, you can put that in here. There's also a link that shows you exactly how to set this up and enable the API in your project if you haven't already. So you put in your project ID and then you put in a location. In this case, I'm using US Central 1, but there are other locations, like there are ones in Canada if you need to use that, if you need to keep your data in the country for some reason. We create a client by doing genai.client. In this case, we're using Vertex AI, so we're setting Vertex AI equal to true. We have the project ID in and the location of this. And then we load the model that we're going to use, which in this case is Gemini 2.0 Flash experimental, into a little constant here that we can use for all these other calls. And so just doing a basic text generation request here, we just use client.models.generate content. We pass in that model ID that we created earlier, and then add in our prompt. which in this case, we're just going to say, like, what's the largest planet in our solar system? We can display this using Markdown, and it gives us an accurate answer. I mean, I think that's still accurate. Maybe the solar system has changed since this was developed, but I hope not. We have a few example prompts in here. You can also do this with streaming text, but I'm not going to show you how to do that right here. You can also do multi-turn chat, which maintains the context between each of the messages that are sent in. So for example here, you can create a chat session right here with the particular model ID. You can send in a message. In this case, write a function that checks if a year is a leap year. And hopefully the API will not fail me. I think it'll work. Yep, here we go. So then it generates some code for us here. In this case, is leap year. And this looks pretty accurate to me. It gives you some example usage as well here and a full explanation of what exactly is going on with this. And then because we're using a chat session, we're going to send a follow-up prompt, and it's going to use the previous context of that code that we generated to give us a more detailed answer here. In this case, we ask it to write a unit test of that generated function. And here we go. So it doesn't output all that same code from before. It just gives you the unit test of it, but it uses all of that context from before to know what exactly we're talking about. And it gives you a nice little explanation of it as well. Oh, that's kind of nice. It tells you exactly how to use the test in there. That's pretty new. So if you want to use async IO, which is a popular paradigm for doing all this stuff or doing asynchronous workflows in Python, you can do that as well. There's some analogous methods. If you just do client.aio, it'll give you every single method that is shown in this notebook has an asynchronous version of it. So you can also adjust the parameters. These are all the kind of knobs, buttons, and switches you have whenever interacting with the Gemini model. So you can put in things like temperature, top P, top K. You can say how many candidates, like how many options essentially the model generates. You can put in a seed value if you want a more deterministic output. You can limit the output tokens, which is how much text it gives you at the end, stop sequences, all that kind of stuff. So for example, we can ask it, tell me how the internet works, but pretend I'm a puppy who only understands squeaky toys, which I think is very cute. It says, okay, little squeaky friend, let's talk about the internet, but in puppy terms. Imagine a huge, gigantic yard bigger than any yard you've ever seen. The yard is full of squeaky toys, but they're not all in one place. They're scattered all over. So very cute. And so in this case, we put in a max output tokens of only 100. So it only output about 100-ish words in this example here. Yeah, so you can also set things like system instructions, which is just allows you to steer the behavior of the model. This is the kind of spot you would put in things like, you are an expert in blah, blah, blah. And your mission is to do this thing. In this case, you're a helpful language translator. Your mission is to translate text in English to French. So it's just a way of kind of giving a pre-instruction to the model that is sticky throughout the whole session that you're doing here. So in this case, I do not speak French, unfortunately, but I'm guessing a lot of people here do. So hopefully, is this actually correct? I've never actually checked it. It's not? Oh my goodness. What should it be? Wait, can you say it again? No?
These are not bagels.
Really? Okay, so what does this actually say right here?
I love bagels.
I love bagels. Oh, nice. So it's not entirely, it's just slightly different for it. Huh. Okay. See, I'm learning something new here today. We probably need to change this example because this doesn't look great. Oops. So you can also set things like safety filters as well if you're working with anything that's particularly sensitive, or if you don't want, like, I don't know, dangerous or like explicit stuff to come out from the model, because who knows, these models are just random number generators at their core. So some things will slip through the cracks sometimes, but this allows you to kind of block different levels of different types of responses. So if you have any dangerous content, harassment, hate speech, explicit content, you can set it to filter all that kind of stuff out, and it'll just stop if it doesn't, if it detects anything like that. Yep, here we go. So in this case, you can see that I ask it to do, what is it? 5 hateful, mean, and disrespectful things I might say to the universe after stubbing my toe in the dark. Very evil stuff here. In this case, it actually doesn't think that these are that bad, so that's kind of impressive. Most of this is actually pretty tame. in the grand scheme of things. But it does say that the probability of hate speech or dangerous content is negligible in this case. And here's some of the really fun stuff here, the multimodal prompts. So you can send in, as I said earlier, text, code, documents, images, audio, video, and get back text or multimodal output as well. So for example, here we have an image that I'm going to download from Google Cloud Storage, which is just a picture of, like of a meal, like of some food. Oh, this is interesting here. The client library changed since the last time I ran this. You know, technology is evolving every single day. And actually, I know that a new version of this SDK was just pushed, I think like 5 hours ago. And this notebook installed the latest version. So you guys are the first to learn about this. This is amazing. So let's skip ahead to the next one, just because hopefully it works. You know, this is the joy of doing live demos. You never know what's going to happen here. So in this case, I'm passing in a document from Google Cloud Storage. I think this is the attention is all you need paper, which is the original report that created announced the creation of the transformer model, which is by Google DeepMind and University of Toronto. And so we asked just for a simple little summary of this PDF file that we sent in, which introduced the transformer, a novel neural network architecture for sequence transduction, all that kind of stuff, relying solely on the attention mechanisms to draw dependencies between input and output sequences. Very fun. So you can also pass in audio, which in this case, I'm asking to do a summary of this podcast episode. We're going to skip that for now. You can send in video from a YouTube URL, which is pretty cool. So if you actually watch this, there's a point in the video where there's a clip from Harry Potter shown in it. And this does what we call like a needle in a haystack search. So it's able to search through, I think, this 5 or 10 minute long video and find the specific seconds where the clips from the Harry Potter movies are shown. And so it takes a minute to parse through all of that. But once it does, we should have something interesting. Yep. So it shows that it's at second 57 through minute 101. Let's see, we can actually we can verify this if we want. Let's just see what we get here. I think that is correct. It's a 3-minute long video. So if we look at second, about 57, 58, somewhere in here, it actually shows clips from the Harry Potter movie, or from probably Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, I think is what it's called here. Okay, so then we mentioned a little bit more the multimodal live API. We're going to show that later if we have time. You can also do stuff like control generation, which lets you define a schema for the model to output. This is really useful if you want to do post-processing with this data. It's great for things like document understanding or connecting to other tools as well. So in this case, we're asking the model to list a few popular cookie recipes and their ingredients. And we give it a Pydantic base model here, which is just a class that has name, description, and ingredients in there as options. And we give it a configuration object here that says the response MIME type should be application JSON. So we can print out the raw text here as well, which just gives us all of the answer in JSON format. Or you can actually pull this in as an object directly by using response.parsed. And so it loads it in as a direct object here. And you can do a few other things with this, like you can put it in an open API specification or use enums or something like that, and it works the same way. You can also count and compute the different numbers and the actual tokens that are being sent into the model if you're concerned about cost or anything along those lines. Now, this is some of the kind of exclusive stuff for the Gemini model compared to a lot of other things out there is integration of Google Search directly. So this lets you connect all real world data from the public internet into the Gemini model in real time. So you can ground your model responses to Google search results, and then the model can access all this kind of information at runtime beyond whatever is in its training data. And this is all pretty straightforward to set up here. So all you have to do is create a tool object here and import in Google search. And we can ask it a question like, when is the next total solar eclipse in the United States? And it should give us an up-to-date answer based on what is on the public internet. It looks right here. So The next total solar eclipse in the United States is in March 2033, but only visible in Alaska. The next one that'll be visible in the contiguous United States is August 2044. It'll pass through Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. Very interesting stuff here. And so all of that was just what, like 5-ish lines of code in total. I mean, this stuff ahead of it is just other examples. But if you actually want to connect this stuff in, it's pretty straightforward to do. You can also pull in your own data using another product called Vertex AI Search that lets you pull in PDFs and data from data warehouses, cloud storage stuff. You can also have a lot of connectors for other popular data sources out there, things like Workday and Slack and Atlassian, Jira, all those kinds of things. And so if you want to connect Gemini into other types of tools out there to build things like agents, you can use function calling to do this. So you can either just pass in a raw Python function for automatic function calling. So what this will do is that I have a little function here that's called get current weather that just has a fake little weather map here of all of the different types of weather that might be happening out there. Maybe I should change the Seattle one to Vancouver, BC for Vancouver, BC, because it's probably raining here at most points. That's what I've experienced when I've been here. And so it's just this is just a sample little function. This is not how you'd actually get the weather, but it's substituting for a real API call here. So in this case, I can ask the model, what is this? So what is the weather like in Vancouver? And what it'll actually do here is all I do is I just pass this function directly into it. And it will actually call this function, get the answer from this little dictionary here, and then generate a natural language response for this. Yep, the weather in Vancouver, BC is raining. So that sounds pretty accurate. That is accurate today as well. You can also do manual function calling if you want. It's a little more complicated, but if you have a lot of complex services, then you might want to do something like that. Yeah, go for it. In this case, it will respond with like, I don't have information on that. So if I ask it for, like, I took out Seattle here. What is the weather like in Seattle? Or like a non-existent one. Yep, I'm sorry, I don't have the current weather information for Seattle. So in this case, it only used stuff that it had access to. Yeah. And so here's an example of some of the code execution stuff. This is the kind of newer cutting edge features for Gemini 2.0. So what we're going to have it do is generate some code to generate calculate the 20th Fibonacci number, then find the nearest palindrome to it. This sounds like a leak code question if I ever saw one. I am not a fan of leak code stuff, but it is what it is. So we pass in the code execution tool. To this, we give it the prompt. And then what we're going to do here is print out the response. See, I wasn't even able to finish talking about it before it finished. That's actually kind of cool. So what we do is we print out the language of the code was the generated code is in. And then we can actually see what the code execution result is and if it worked successfully. So we have the code that it generated here. We have the Fibonacci thing, which generates the actual Fibonacci numbers. And then we can see the outcome is okay, it worked correctly. And then this is the second part of the code that we asked for. We asked for the nearest palindrome to it. Yeah, so we can actually see all the different examples that it came up with. We can see both the the actual code itself and the outcome and the answers that it generated. And it did a couple of different function calls in there. I actually have a couple of different notebooks here that show how to do spatial understanding or object detection with Gemini 2.0, which is a pretty neat thing. You can pass in images, and then it can find like the bounding boxes of different objects inside the image, and give little descriptions of all of it. Okay, so this took a little bit longer than I expected, but I will go and show you guys where to find all of the other notebooks that I was referring to earlier. So we're going to go to the Vertex AI Cookbook. This is the place that you would probably want to go if you want to learn more about Vertex AI and the Gemini API, all that kind of stuff. We have a few examples here for showing that multimodal live API, Gemini 2.0 flash thinking mode, as well as a bunch of other notebooks made by my team and I that show kind of deep dive into all of these features. We kind of went very fast through all of these different kinds of things, but hopefully you guys have learned a little something about this. Let's see here. We also have a bunch of feature tutorials that are like different types of use cases for these types of models, including things like creating marketing assets, There's a few that are kind of about creating agents. There's some about evaluation, security, all of that kind of stuff. Oh, that was interesting. Okay, then I'm going to pass the torch off to Allison for a couple minutes to talk about our Google Cloud for Startups program as well. Do you want the microphone?
Yeah, sure. I'll take the microphone.
There you go.
Hello. I'm just going to hold this, and we're going to talk in the dark. So hi, everyone. My name is Allison Corner. I am a customer engineer at Google. I have a question for the audience. Do we have any startups in the room? We have a couple. We have a couple. Do you guys realize how expensive everything we just talked about can get? Yes. Okay. So that is what I'm here to talk about. At Google, we have a program called Google for Startups. We offer up to $200,000 in credits, $350,000 if you are an AI-specific startup. You can use this QR code to sign up. If there's a video on that page, it's one of my coworkers explaining how to apply and all the information needed. If you do apply, you will be reached out to by a member of the sales team who will connect you with someone like me, who is a customer engineer. We're engineers that love talking to people all day, and we help find the appropriate products for y'all to use in the Google platform, as well as how you can help your business grow. If anyone has any questions about this program or wants to ask me questions about our tools, you can talk to Holt. I'm going to volunteer him and also myself after this program, and I will leave the QR code up for a couple of minutes.
Available in Canada?
Yes, actually, one of my team members who is not based in Canada does cover Canada, so we do have support in the Canada region. Who is next?
So I need to plug up here so we can go. Excellent. So thank you. So now I'm going to pass it off to, where'd they go? Okay, well, okay, I can entertain everyone for a couple minutes here until our next speaker comes in. I have no idea where he just went, so. Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, go for it.
Do you have like a service like Anthropic has that like you have this kind of like multi-modal screens on the computer that you can recognize?
Oh, you're talking about computer use?
Yeah.
Yeah. See.
So that you can automate all the notebooks that you showed you, so just sit and like say play recording, right?
I mean, yes, you can do that. You can actually even do that without generative AI if you wanted to. But I mean, the point of the notebooks is to kind of go through and learn through it, I guess. But there's also a button on notebooks where you can just run all at once. But anyways, so you can actually run Anthropic models on Vertex AI as well. So it's through the model garden. So we have Anthropic models on there. There's a notebook in this repository that has a tutorial to that on Vertex AI. I don't remember where it is here. It's in partner models, Claude. Yeah, computer use demo. Here it is. We actually have like a full demo in here that shows how to use that. So I can give you a QR code for that if you would like as well. Create a QR code for this page. Here it is. Yeah.
For the multi-modal, how does it support the time series? I know there's some foundation model for time series, but I'm not sure can the time series model train with time series.
Yeah, so for time series models, we don't typically look at kind of generative models. Those are more what we would call predictive AI models. I know there are some actually in Model Garden on Vertex AI for this. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I can look it up and talk to you afterwards if you want more of that. Yeah. Yes, someone in the back. Yeah, so typically, our other speaker is here now. So the Gemini Developer API is more for people who are just getting started with generative AI and wanting to kind of try it out. Vertex AI is more for kind of production use cases, or production and enterprise use cases. So here, actually, I did promise I was going to provide a resource on the Gemini Developer API too. If you do a Google search for Gemini Cookbook, we have a couple of different cookbooks out here. So that there's a GitHub repository here that shows how to use just the Gemini Developer API. All of the code for this will work the exact same way if you use the Developer API or Vertex AI. And there actually is information here on how to get like an API key for all of that. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to our next great speaker. So come on in.
Thank you, Holt.
Yes.